Welcome back to Weird Stuff in a Can. It's been a while. Today what I've got for you is a can of Foster's Lager. So yeah, a can of Foster's Lager on Weird Stuff in a Can. What's weird about that? Well, this is a commemorative can of Foster's Lager from the MV Oriana. And the particular strangeness about this can of lager is this is 30 years old. It was made in 1995 and it's still sealed. And today we're going to open it up and see what it's like after all that time. So yeah, this is one of the reasons we've had such a delay between this episode and the last on Weird Stuff in a Can. I wanted to wait until this can was 30 years old, which I appreciate may be older than some of you watching this. Now, I picked this can of lager up when I was on the Oriana in 1995. I was actually working on board. At the time, I worked for a company that ran the duty-free shops and gift shops on cruise ships, in some airports and on a few ferries and other places. And I was in the stock audit department, and I used to have to travel to all of our different shops and perform the stock takes there with my colleagues. One of the kind of perks of that job was that when we did the stock takes on the cruise ships, we very often had to do that during a cruise. So we would travel as passengers. We would still work quite hard, and a lot of the time we were working down in the storeroom that stank of diesel and whatever else while the ship was pitching and tossing, crossing the Bay of Biscay or whatever. So it wasn't all fun and games, but you know, they say work hard, play hard. We did work hard, and we also enjoyed the benefits of traveling on cruise ships as passengers. And so I was on the Oriana, not for the maiden voyage, but during the maiden season. And I got this can of Foster's, which in itself was not an easy thing to do, because when you went to the bar and said, "Can I have a beer?" they'd open it for you and pour a little bit and hand it to you. And so we had to persuade them to let us take a couple of cans away unopened, on some pretense that we were going to take it back to our cabin and drink it later, I think was what we told them. But of course our intention was to keep this as a souvenir. And I have had this in my sock drawer for 30 years. And I think it's time that we open it and see how well it's fared. So just looking around the can, there's not a lot to see, except that this has got the commemorative branding on there. It's got some information there about the Oriana. 69,000 tonnes, British registered, fully air conditioned and stabilised, 1,760 passengers and 760 crew, 853 feet long, 105 feet wide, 11 passenger decks, maximum speed 24 knots. Now the Oriana is still in service, but not as the Oriana. It was launched in 1995, and then in 2019 it was decommissioned by P&O Cruises and sold to a brand new Chinese cruise line called Astro Ocean. And this ship still sails, but it sails now under the name MV Piano Land, which is a weird name for a ship, I think, but whatever. Now, I suppose we ought to get out of the way the whole thing about Foster's not being the world's most well-respected beer. I think a lot of people, I think possibly even though this says Australia's famous beer, I think possibly even a lot of Australians do not hold Foster's Lager in high regard. I'm not a massive lager drinker anyway, although I have fairly broad tastes and I don't mind a cold lager on a hot summer's day, and I have drunk a fair bit of Foster's Lager in my youth. I didn't think it was that bad actually personally, but again, perhaps that's just an artefact of me not being the world's most fussy person. 330ml, alcohol content 5.0% by volume, and critically, the best before date on here is the 15th of March 1996, a little over 29 years ago. So this is 29 years out of date. What's it going to be like inside? Well, I think, even though I probably won't end up drinking this because I can't imagine it's going to be drinkable after this time, I think the only thing we can really do with this is chill it properly so that we can open it chilled. So that's not chilled at the moment. I'm just going to go off and stick that in the fridge. I might just give this top a little wipe over as well because it's filthy. And back in a moment when it's all chilled and we're going to open it. So then, here we are. This has been chilling in the fridge for about 2 hours. As you can see, there's condensation on there now. And we're going to open it up. Now, I suppose I could put it in this lovely barley wine glass, but I think I'm going to use just a plain straight glass so that this camera here can see what we've ended up with. Here we go. Well, there was a little hiss there. That's a surprise. So, to my great surprise, it still looks like beer. I think that's probably a bit more yellow, a bit darker than I would have expected Foster's to be. I think I seem to remember Foster's last. I haven't drunk it for a while. I remember Foster's being a lighter yellow than that. Oh, I can see specks and I can see things floating around in it. Now that is probably just yeast residue or something like that, so I imagine it's continued to ferment a little bit. It seems a bit lively, gotta say, so it seems like it might have continued to ferment in the can. The can has not ruptured. The top was a bit more domed, I think, than usual. It did seem like it was under greater pressure than a usual can of beer. But there you go. So that hasn't turned into indescribable filth, which is kind of what I expected. It smells a little bit, it does smell of beer, but it smells a little bit earthy, and a little bit kind of pickled. So I don't think I want to drink this. I am going to have a little taste. I think what I'll do, I'll have a little taste. I'll probably spit it out. So I won't treat you to that noise. I've got a glass I will use as a spittoon here, and I've got some water to wash my mouth out with afterwards. I'm going to taste a bit of this, but I'm not going to swallow. Okay, well, it definitely still tastes of beer. It tastes very stale and yeasty. It's got a very bready, yeasty, musty sort of flavour to it that's not going away. There is also a distinct acrid, I don't know quite how to describe it, almost a kind of sweaty smell to it. That is as much as I'm going to taste of that. There is also a very slightly gloopy texture to it. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but it just doesn't quite seem as liquid as it ought to be. It's a little bit viscous, and I think that might well be the result of some kind of bacterial fermentation that's gone on there. In fact, you can see in the top of the head here, it's just ever so slightly gelatinous or viscous. See, the bubbles are forming strings, or like almost like there's a skin on it. But I am surprised that it looks as close to normal as it does. Just giving it a little swirl around so that we can see if there's more sediment to come out. Yeah, there's lots and lots of little specks of stuff dancing around inside the glass there on the carbonation. Yeah, I wouldn't dream of drinking any more of that. I don't think it would be healthy to do so. It's clearly been, because canned beverages like this, canned beers, obviously they're not treated in the same way as canned food. Canned food is sterilised inside the can by heating. Beer typically is not. It's just placed in the can and sealed down. And the acidity of the beer and the hops and probably the alcohol content a little bit as well is what preserves it until it's consumed within the best before date. Anyway, as you can imagine, I've been quite curious about what was going on inside this can. It's been sitting there, and I've been occasionally seeing it over the last 30 years, and now I know. So there we go. That was Weird Stuff in a Can, 30-year-old Foster's Lager from the MV Oriana. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.